Can you get sensitivity from Chi Sao or Hubud or Sombrata? No. Sensitivity, let's just define that real quick. Sensitivity, as it's usually used by martial artists and by JKD people, is nothing but timing applied to tactile sense. Okay, so in other words, through feeling, your body responds with proper timing. Now, obviously, in order to achieve that, you need to be working against another resisting human being. Otherwise, there's nothing to time off of. You can't get sensitivity from a wooden dummy or a heavy bag. If I roll around with my sleeping bag, I'm not going to get better at escaping bottom or holding top, really, because the sleeping bag is not resisting, so I'm not really getting any tactile sense. So that's something that people really need to learn when it comes to live training. There's 1,000 ways to gain true sensitivity from day one without getting hurt with sport-specific moves. They don't involve patterns, they can be taught to anyone, and they're alive and safe. Why do so many instructors still teach Sombrata and Hubud and those things? Yeah, that's a good point, and it was interesting. I actually saw an interview by a very famous JKD instructor who used the fact that people do Sombrata all over the world, thousands of them, and have been doing them for years, as validation for the training method. And that's just incredibly illogical. I mean, people do all kinds of crazy things all over the world, and the fact that a large percentage of people may train or do a particular drill doesn't validate the drill, right? If that was the case, then everything in traditional martial arts would be valid. I mean, the most valid training method would be probably what Taekwondo people do, because there's more Taekwondo people in Taekwondo schools than anything else. Does that make Taekwondo more functional than, say, Muay Thai? You know, there's 100 times more people in the United States doing Taekwondo than there are doing Muay Thai. So therefore, is Taekwondo functional? So you see, it's just completely illogical. So it's just a cognitive dissonance. But my God's honest truth as to why more instructors continue to do this is because they simply don't know how else to do it. They teach as they were taught, and they don't understand how to properly drill with beginners using aliveness, and they fear that they'll lose students if they do because people will get hurt or they won't like it, and that's completely understandable because they haven't been shown the other one. And they want to stay in business. So it's just a question of education, of just teaching people, look, you know, you can have a gym filled with 65-year-old people who are not athletes, and you can still train with aliveness, and they'll love it. And you not only will you not lose business, my guess is that you'll gain business. So it's overcoming all these basic fallacies and teaching people that it's just as safe, just as easy to learn, just as fun, in my opinion, far more fun, and far more functional to train with aliveness as it is to train in any of the old training methods that they were experienced before. What is the day chow analogy? Okay, well, this is an analogy I use to kind of explain one of the shell games, one of the con jobs that exists in martial arts. And I'm using day chow because it relates, you know, deviation of the word term Chi Sao. And what I'm trying to explain when I use that analogy is why it's always important to teach principles for fighting with activity-specific movement, activity-specific drills. So this is the example I'll give. I'll talk about, let's say I'm teaching a class of beginners or, you know, martial artists, and I talk about a mysterious dropping energy, okay? And I have a two-person form where we're going to demonstrate this principle of dropping energy. You know, perhaps it's a little dance where we stomp our feet a few times like the chicken step and collie, or perhaps it's a two-person kind of patty cake form where we play a game and try and slap each other's hips before we perform a drop, quote unquote, okay? And there would be a whole set of rules for these games, okay? So you have to keep your elbow in here, and you have to put your hand here, and as I go to touch you here, you know, you have to drop there, and it's just a game. We invent this game, and what is the purpose of the game? The game is designed to teach you dropping energy, okay? Now, if you do that, then very quickly there will be day chow. We'll call this drill, this dropping energy drill, day chow. DE for dropping energy, okay? Day chow. And if you do that, then very quickly you're going to have day chow experts, and they're undefeatable at the game of day chow. So anytime you try and touch them in a particular place, they can drop, right? And they can show you cool switches. So when you go to touch here, they switch your hand here, and then they drop, and they become very ornate about it. And all kinds of variations of the day chow drill that they would teach and pass back and forth. And then somebody questions them as to why the day chow drill doesn't look like anything that occurs in a real fight. I've never seen anybody stand that way. in a real fight, says someone. Or I've never seen anybody actually try and touch your hip that way in a real fight. And then the instructor says, no, whoa, wait a minute, listen. Dai Chow is just meant to teach you the principles of dropping energy. That's why you've never seen it. It's designed to teach you the principle. Right? So that would be, in my opinion, absurd. Here's another way to approach it, alternative method. How about teaching someone to sprawl? Okay, the sprawl teaches dropping energy. But if you were to ask a wrestler what he was doing, they would just tell you they were learning to stop a takedown, right? They don't use the term dropping energy. They just say, I'm sprawling. I'm trying to stop the takedown. And you begin to teach it by practicing it, relaxed and slow and making sure they have the proper mechanics and they're putting their hips into it. And then you can actually, if you want to build up to it and the person's not that athletic, you can have somebody crawl at them and they can sprawl. And then they go a little harder and faster. And pretty soon, in a short period of time, you have one person trying to take a shot, trying to tackle the other one, and the other person sprawling and stopping them. Now, they're learning a functional fighting skill that everybody needs to know. This is a fundamental of fighting in general, is to sprawl. Everybody needs to know how to sprawl properly. And at the same time, they're being taught the principle. I don't think the principle in this particular case is important, like the dropping energy. I just made it up. But that's an example of using an activity-specific movement as opposed to creating this whole weird drill designed to teach a principle that doesn't have any application to actual fighting, because fighting doesn't look like that. And that's exactly what Chi Sao is. Nothing you'll ever see in the clinch in mixed martial arts ever resembles Chi Sao, right? So why not teach the principles of fighting in the clinch using the clinch? Why not teach the principles of fighting at that range using the movements people actually use when fighting at that range? Why would you use anything else? And I think that question of why people do use other things like Chi Sao is a very good one, because it creates a game that people can become experts at that really has nothing to do with fighting. So it's kind of a con game. Isn't it ignorant to claim, as some have, that Chi Sao is ineffective? No. That's inside out. Ignorance comes from the root word which implies that you're ignoring something. Ignorance, you're ignoring something. And in this case, what you're ignoring is the fact that there's absolutely no measured evidence for any functional use of Chi Sao.